I sat across from my wife and my best friend at dinner, smiling and pouring their wine, while they had no idea I had already seen the texts, the hotel receipts, and every lie they thought was hidden. My name is Ryan Walsh. I am 34 years old, and I live in Dayton, Ohio. I work as a project manager at a manufacturing company, the kind of job where you show up early, put your head down, and go home tired but proud of what you built that day. My wife, Megan, taught second grade at the elementary school 2 miles from our house. We had been married for 7 years, together for 9. We had a small brick house with a crooked mailbox, a golden retriever named Biscuit, and a life that looked, from the outside, like exactly what I had always wanted. My best friend was a guy named Tyler Grant. We met in college at Ohio State, both broke, both working part-time at the same pizza place, and we stayed close for over 15 years after that. Tyler was the best man at my wedding. He was the one who helped me carry boxes into this house the day we moved in. He had keys to our place because he watered our plants when we traveled. He came over almost every weekend for football games, sitting on my couch, eating my food, laughing with my wife like she was his sister. That was the life I thought I had. Normal, steady, nothing dramatic. I never once imagined that the two people I trusted most in the world were quietly building something behind my back. It started small, the kind of small you talk yourself out of noticing. Megan started taking her phone into the bathroom when she used to leave it on the nightstand. She started staying late at school for meetings that never used to exist. She started getting quieter around Tyler instead of louder, and if you know anything about guilt, you know that silence is often louder than laughter. One night in March, Tyler came over to watch a game, and I caught something in the way he looked at her when she walked past with 2 beers. It was quick, barely a second, but it was not a look a man gives his best friend's wife. I did not say anything that night. I just filed it away, the way you file away a splinter you plan to deal with later. 2 weeks after that, Megan left her phone on the kitchen counter while she was in the shower, and a message popped up on the screen from a contact saved under a fake name, something like Coach Dave. The preview line said, "I can't stop thinking about last night." My stomach dropped, but I did not touch the phone. I walked outside, sat on the porch steps in the cold, and made a decision that would define the next month of my life. I was not going to confront her yet. I was going to find out everything first. I started paying closer attention without changing my behavior. I noticed a hotel charge on our joint credit card statement from a Tuesday afternoon when Megan was supposedly at a teacher training session 2 towns over. I noticed Tyler canceled our regular Thursday night plans 3 weeks in a row, always with a vague excuse about work. I noticed Megan started wearing a necklace I had never bought her, tucking it under her shirt whenever I walked into the room. I set up a small voice recorder in my truck, the one Megan sometimes borrowed to run errands. What I heard on that recording 3 days later broke something in me that I am still putting back together. It was Megan's voice and Tyler's voice, laughing together in a way that felt intimate and familiar, talking about a hotel in Cincinnati, about how careful they needed to be, about how I was too busy with work to notice anything anyway. I sat in my truck in a parking lot after work and listened to that recording 4 times. Then I drove home, walked in the door, kissed my wife on the cheek, and asked her how her day was. She said, "It was fine, just tired." I said, "Me too, work's been a lot." Every word out of my mouth felt like acid, but I kept my face calm. I needed proof that could not be argued away, dates, receipts, messages, something undeniable, before I let either of them know that I knew. Over the following 2 weeks, I quietly gathered everything. I pulled hotel confirmation emails from a shared cloud account Megan forgot I still had access to from years earlier. I found a string of messages on a laptop she left open one night, messages that spelled out an affair that had been going on for almost 5 months, since October. 5 months of Sunday dinners, birthday parties, and holidays where they sat across the table from me pretending nothing was wrong. The betrayal alone was devastating, but the calculation behind it was almost worse. They had planned around me. They had used my trust as cover. Tyler had used his own key to my house, the key I gave him because I loved him like a brother, to be alone with my wife while I was at work providing for a marriage that had already quietly ended without my permission. What made it harder to accept was how normal they made everything look the entire time. Megan still packed my lunch some mornings and fell asleep next to me every night like nothing had changed. Tyler still texted me memes and invited me to watch games, sitting 3 feet away from me on my own couch while carrying a secret that would have destroyed me instantly if I had known it a month earlier. I started to understand that the people closest to you can lie to you this well only because you have already decided, deep down, that they never would. When I finally told my sister, Danielle, what I had found, I expected her to be angry on my behalf. Instead she hesitated and said, "Are you sure you're reading this right? Megan loves you, Ryan. Maybe you're misunderstanding something." That response cut deeper than I expected. My own mother, when I told her weeks later, said something similar, telling me that marriages go through rough patches and that Tyler had always been a little too friendly, but surely he wouldn't do that to you. Nobody said it directly, but I could feel the unspoken suggestion that maybe I had pushed Megan toward this somehow, that maybe I worked too much, that maybe I was not paying enough attention to my own marriage. I remember sitting alone in my truck outside my mother's house after that conversation, gripping the steering wheel so hard my hands ached, feeling like the 2 people I loved most had betrayed me and the people I turned to for support were quietly asking what I had done wrong. That was the lowest point. I felt invisible in my own life, like a background character in a story where my wife and my best friend were the real leads and I was just the man footing the bills and paying the mortgage while they built a secret life 2 towns over. Even my father told me on the phone one night that maybe I should let it blow over and think about the years of friendship before doing anything drastic, as if years of friendship should count for more than 5 months of lies. I hung up that call feeling more alone than I had ever felt, standing in my own kitchen where Tyler used to sit laughing, wondering if everyone around me valued keeping the peace more than telling me the truth. For a few days I considered just leaving quietly, packing a bag, disappearing to my cousin's place in Columbus, letting them figure it out on their own. But something in me refused to let this end with me slinking away in silence while they kept smiling at family barbecues like nothing happened. I thought about every dinner where Tyler raised a glass and called me his brother. I thought about every night Megan told me she loved me while a hidden phone sat in her purse. I decided I was not going to disappear. I was going to make sure the truth came out on my terms, in a way they could never spin or soften. I met with a divorce attorney named Patricia Coleman and laid out everything I had, the recordings, the messages, the hotel receipts, the timeline. She confirmed that in Ohio, infidelity itself does not usually change how assets are split, but with proof of dissipation, meaning money spent on the affair from shared accounts, I could argue for a larger share of what we had built together. I filed quietly, without telling either of them, and let the paperwork process in the background while I finished planning exactly how I wanted this to end. I decided to let them keep planning their own trap. Megan mentioned she and Tyler wanted to plan a friend dinner at our house that Friday, the same kind of dinner we used to have every week before everything changed. I agreed, and I offered to cook. I spent that week finishing the divorce filing, printing copies of every message and every receipt, and asking Danielle, the same sister who had once questioned me, to come stand outside as a witness after everything I showed her finally convinced her I was right. Friday night arrived. Megan set the table. Tyler brought wine, the same easy grin on his face he always wore, completely unaware that his key to my house had already been changed that afternoon and that this would be the last dinner he ever walked into without wondering what was coming. We ate for almost 20 minutes making small talk about work and football before I set my fork down and said, "I know about Cincinnati." The room went completely silent. Megan's face went white. Tyler tried to laugh it off and said, "No, what about Cincinnati, man?" I slid the folder across the table, photographs, message screenshots, the hotel receipt with both their names essentially spelled out in the timeline even though only one card was used. I said, 5 months. Since October. I have the recordings too, if you want to hear yourselves. Megan started crying immediately, saying my name over and over, reaching for my hand, which I pulled away. Tyler just stared at the table, saying nothing, because there was nothing left to say. I told them both, calmly, that the divorce paperwork was already filed, that Tyler no longer had a key to my house, and that I expected him to leave before I called the police for trespassing, since as of that afternoon he was no longer welcome on my property. I watched my former best friend walk out of my house for the last time, the same door he used to walk through like he owned the place. The months that followed were not easy. Losing a marriage and a best friend in the same conversation leaves a specific kind of silence in your life, the kind where you keep almost calling someone before remembering they are the reason you are alone. But slowly, the silence stopped feeling like punishment and started feeling like peace. My sister apologized for doubting me and became one of the people I lean on most now. I kept the house. I kept Biscuit. I built a life that nobody else gets to secretly plan around anymore. Megan tried reaching out months later, saying she wanted to explain herself, wanted me to understand how it happened. I never responded. Some things do not need an explanation, only an ending. I think about that dinner sometimes, the folder on the table, the silence that followed, and I do not feel angry anymore when I remember it. I feel something closer to relief, because the version of me who smiled and poured their wine while already knowing the truth was the last time I ever had to pretend.